recording.
Cool.
Hi, I'm Anna from One Joyful Mother. Today I'm chatting with Amanda, who is a mother and coach, and she's passionate about empowering mothers to regain their energy. Hi, Amanda.
Hi, Anna.
Hi. And I was just thinking, actually, as we were just doing this, both of us being mothers to three, we've decided to do our chat at nearly 5 o'clock in the evening.
No, terrible idea. No.
Hour. So yeah, I think we'll be really lucky if we manage to get through this conversation without being interrupted.
Yeah.
So Amanda, I was listening to your sort of info page last night, and you were sort of addressing some of the common problems that mothers have. Do you want to run through some of those?
Well, there's loads of problems. There's loads of issues, and mainly, we're really exhausted as mothers. We've got a huge amount of pressure on us, and we're very, very tired. It has a huge impact on our body, obviously, and on our life. But it sort of the amount of pressure that we're under sort of kind of compounds that stress and that exhaustion. It's yes, we're not getting sleep, and yes, you're breastfeeding, your body's changed and all that stuff. But underlying all of that is a massive shift in your identity and the amount of kind of pressure you're under to get everything right. And that in itself is hugely draining of energy. And you're sort of fighting that, as well as all the new things that you've got to do and be in love with your child and be super energetic. So you've got lots of massive things on your shoulders, basically, so there's a lot to kind of cope with your energy and your identity.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I felt personally when I first was given birth, it was like everything I knew about myself had just collapsed. It just suddenly felt like I had to rebuild myself, that I was totally broken. It was the biggest shock. And nothing can prepare you for it, can you? How many books or anything you do.
Yeah, absolutely. Because it's you can't describe it. Like, I remember actually trying to sort of get information from my older sisters and my mother, like when it was getting close to my first child being born. I was like, no, really, what is it actually like what's actually going to happen? And they were really like vague and just went, oh well, you'll be fine. And I found it quite frustrating, because I wanted some real information. And then when I've on the other side of that, a year or two later or whatever, after my second or third child, I understood that that's partly because you just can't describe it in words. You just can't, that it really is a kind of baptism of fire. It really is a rite of passage. You have to go through it, and it's different. So if you describe it in words, it's not real anyway, because it's such a huge transformation. And yet at the same time, I feel quite strongly that it's not fully recognized. Like, we recognize it, and mothers do recognize it in themselves, but it's not really out in the open as something that's part of becoming a mother. That massive shift in your life and your identity
there's a very much
kind of displays.
It's a very romantic idea, isn't there, of being a mother, and it's going to be the happiest time of your life,
look, exactly. And I mean, I felt like that as well. I felt very much that when I became a mum, that I was going to sort of blossom and like this was going to be it, and that when I was with my child, that feeling of being close to your child, I mean, you do feel it and it is wonderful and real, but I kind of felt like that would be it. You know what I mean? And that I just wasn't aware of all the other feelings and how much work it is, really, and how that can have an impact on that sort of lovely feeling of a bubble of you and your child. You want to just have that feeling, but you can't maintain it that easily because there's so much else that you're dealing with that you're not necessarily prepared for. Maybe it sounds really sort of negative, but I think that's quite realistic.
So can you tell us a bit about your experience then, so your first child? And the reality.
So I was really into like natural birth and natural health, and I was quite healthy as when I was pregnant, and I did yoga and I ate loads of green salad, and I was just like having a lovely time basically. And we went for a water birth, and despite my mother's kind of warnings, she's like an old school GP, and she was like calling up the midwives and saying, get her out the water. It was like this sort of, and I was like, no, this is what I'm doing. I was really determined. And we had this, our birth plan was all about everything being perfect and natural. And there was no signs of any problems at all. So I was really quite confident about it. And I was doing deep breaths for hours and hours and hours through labor and everything. And then just right at the end, as I got through labor and I thought it was all going really well, and then just as she was born, in water, she couldn't, she came up out of the water, she just couldn't breathe and was whisked away. And it's kind of hard to talk about it, but it was just a real shock, although it took me a while to realize what was happening, because I was still in some sort of strange I was just in a strange state. When you're in labor, you go into this very deep kind of primal place, don't you? And I was still sort of there. And things like we'd even said no to a vitamin K injection and stuff. And actually that was stopping her life. I mean, that was stopping her blood from clotting. My mother, who was in the hospital, fortunately, and she came rushing back and said, you've got to give permission for the vitamin K injection, otherwise, So it was like a massive change from having this perfect, not perfect, but the kind of lovely situation, and then suddenly this kind of hardcore medicalized, urgent situation happening. And I had to change, I had to sort of shift gears, quite fast. And it was a total shock. And so that idea that just because you're doing everything perfectly in pregnancy doesn't necessarily mean that's what your experience is going to be like. And I think, having that experience, I've talked quite a lot about birth experiences with other mothers. I mean, I think all mothers do. And I kind of noticed that nearly everybody, like no matter, there are other people who've had traumatic things like that, other people who've had like almost idyllic births, but nearly everybody has an element of shock. Yeah. Like it happens to everyone, right? I don't know if you felt like that. And so that there's still this, like, you go through pregnancy and you're prepared for birth, and there's loads of support for labor and all that kind of stuff. But then afterwards, you're in an abyss, it's like different, even if I didn't have postnatal depression or anything, I was lucky like that. But even so, there's just this, this kind of emptiness, and you just got to get on with it, I mean, you're in love with your child as well. I was lucky that I felt all of that, but the support for how I should now navigate myself as a mother was just complete minefield, really. Yeah.
Well, I read recently this thing that said that through giving birth, it's the closest you come to the feeling of, touching death. It's such a shock, and it's such a fine line, you're so nearly there. You could just tip over, anything can just happen. And it's this absolute shock of facing or reacting to that feeling, isn't it?
Yeah, totally. That's a really good description, because it does feel like that. Even if you're feeling really empowered during your labor, that you're still feeling that. Yeah, you do feel like that. That's a really good quote. And then, so even if everything's gone really well, just to have that feeling, changes you. And so, I just think it's a lot to do. And then it's really, you're then starting afresh. You're then like a beginner, at the most important job you're ever going to do. And how do you support yourself in that,
How do you support yourself in that?
Well, I mean, it takes a while, it's taken a long time, and it's an ongoing thing. You have to keep doing it. But I think basically it's the first thing is being aware that you have to, that's what's dropped. The focus is all on how do you feed the child? How do you get the child to sleep? What's the child going to wear? What kind of nappy? All of it on the child. And, when you're pregnant, you're supported in looking after yourself. And the way I see it is you're quite clearly the child's support system. And so everyone expects you to sit down and look after yourself and go to yoga and have a bit of time off work. But as soon as the child's separated from you, you're sort of like discarded in terms of where the focus is, and the focus is on the child. But you are still the child's support system. Like, they cannot survive. They haven't left you. They're just a little bit more on the outside of you, but you're still 100% their support system. So it's just as important. And it's so easy not to realize that, particularly with your first child, but then also if you have a second or third, you're just busier and busier. So the first thing is just being really aware that it's so important, and not seeing it as something that's a luxury or something that's kind of additional, and seeing it as looking after yourself is actually the same as looking after your child. It's not a separate thing. It's the same thing.
It's essential. Yeah, but I think, like you said, society doesn't support that. The pregnant woman, I remember my friend saying that when she was pregnant, people holding, doors open for her. And then, like, as soon as she had the child, she had the buggy or the baby in the sling, it was like doors were suddenly not being opened anymore.
Yeah, absolutely.
Much.
Yeah, totally. I was, when I was first pregnant, I was commuting on a train in and out of London to go to work, and you just walk on the train and everyone's making space for you and everything's fine. And then as soon as you've had the baby, you feel like the eyes are on you in a judgmental kind of way. How's she looking after that baby? Is she breastfeeding? Is she not breastfeeding? Is she in a buggy? Is it in a sling? Is it sleep? Isn't it? All the stuff. Suddenly it's all about, is she good enough for that? Is she doing the right thing? And it's just, it's not helpful to mothers, basically.
No, and I think as women and mothers, it's really important that we recognise that in other mothers, to really hold them up and support them. And I'm really conscious now when I see them struggling, or even not struggling, just to be helpful, or even just to smile, that's an encouragement.
Yeah, because it makes such a huge difference, doesn't it? And I think that's another part of it. Once you're a mother and I've got a little bit of experience, and you understand that, and you see how much of a huge effect it can have, and you compare it to, if we're all honest about how we felt before we had kids, that kind of feeling that you were going to just do it a little bit better than that person or this person. Yeah. Just sort of feeling of like, no, but my child, not even if, not that my child will be perfect, but that we will have this blissful, perfect thing, and everything will be great, and I will be more connected, and I will find it easier because blah, blah, blah. I definitely had that. And, I didn't go around saying it, but I felt it. And so then you have to sort of forgive yourself for feeling that way before, and go, okay, it's not like that, and accept it, and then, and not judge other people as well. Yeah,
I think it's taking back your power, isn't it? It's really making self-care so important that it becomes the norm, and that people around you are expecting that as well. So you don't feel guilty about doing it. You have to do it, and then everyone is going to start benefiting.
Yeah. So I did a lot of just, what most mothers do, is looking for ways to, looking for support and ideas of how to look after my kids in a way that would work for me. So I was constantly sort of looking for things. So I was like, I was doing all slings and natural health, and I had a baby hammock, and then we did co-sleeping and all that. I sort of looked stuff up, and then I would go to like, oh, this doesn't really feel like it's working. And then I would sort of start thinking, oh, maybe I should look up, more kind of, I don't know what the other word is, more kind of structured stuff. Mm-hmm. And then that wouldn't really work. And so, it constantly was looking outside of myself for help. And that is not to say that those things aren't helpful, but if that's all you're doing, if you're not looking to to support yourself, then those things don't really hold much weight. Because if you're exhausted, I'm sure you found this, like if you're tired, you can't uphold the ideas that are in the parenting book. You have to be able to sort it out first. And I it took me until I did Complete Detox Academy, right? and got into breathing and meditation, all stuff that I'd done before, but got into it in a more regular way. And also changing my mindset about what's stressing us out and how we view the world, and looking at gratitude and all these kind of things, and basically choosing our state. It was only when I started doing that, which was nothing to do with parenting whatsoever. I mean, I didn't go and do that because I wanted to, help, look after my kids better. But it just, like, suddenly I just realized after a few weeks of being more kind of efficient with that everything was a bit better and everything was a bit easier.
Well, I remember, because I think we were doing the Detox Academy at the same time, and we were and I think I wrote that I was just sitting down in front of all the kids doing my breathing exercises when it was all kicking off, because it just really calmed me down. And then I would look around and it would all be calming because I'd calmed myself.
Yeah, totally. And I mean, and then it's a kind of classic funny thing when, you're trying to be really mindful and everyone else is screaming at each other. It can, and then you have to sort of forgive yourself for being that mum as well. So it's a tricky balance. It's a really, really tricky balance, but it does work if you sort of keep going with it and you persevere with it, right? It kind of just it just feels like you're much stronger and more able to be I feel much more able to be creative and flexible with how I'm dealing with my children, because I don't find that any one thing ever sticks. It's never like in my family, there's never like one set routine of things that works every time. Every situation, I feel like I have to be on my feet and be able to react to every situation like there and then, and as much as possible, and having that kind of extra emotional space and kind of groundedness basically just allows me to do that. So it's not like a pre-defined set of ways of dealing with things. It's not this is, you do this, you say that, blah blah blah. It's just, if you can feel present and you've got the energy to deal with it and your mindset is generally positive, then you're able to connect with your child in the way that they need in that moment, which is all that they need, right?
It's almost like a toolbox, isn't it? Of situation, things that you can pick out to help you deal with the situation.
Yeah, exactly.
Say, what would you say were the 3 main things that help you then in stressful situations?
Okay, because I'm being quite waffly. So absolutely breathing practice. So a regular breathing practice, even if it's just a few minutes in a day. Like I love the idea that everyone's got time to go to the loo in the day, and like everyone goes to the loo, and that only takes a few minutes. So you really only need a few minutes, and it does start to make a difference. So it's not a huge big thing to have to do once you get used to it. And it can be really, really simple. Like, it doesn't have to be a deep yogic breathing practice. It can just be making sure that you're breathing into your abdomen and breathing calmly and deeply just for a few moments. And I mean, I used to stop like on the stairs, you know what I mean? Like with a pile of laundry, and just go, I'm just going to stop here because no one's like, you know what I mean? I'm not in any room doing anything with any child. I'll just sit here and breathe for a few moments. And so little things like that can just start to help you create that space. So breathing practice, definitely. And I would also, and meditation also is very high up on the list, although they do create a kind of similar effect because they're both about connecting to yourself and getting more present and bringing your stress down. But they are different.
They are, and I think a lot of people are put off by meditation, aren't they? They sort of try it, thoughts come into their head, and then they think, oh, I can't do it, I've got too many things to think about. So what tips would you give to someone then if they were just starting out?
So with meditation, the most important thing to remember is that everybody's got loads of thoughts. That's like, that's normal, and that is actually the reason for doing it. I heard someone once say that it's a bit like you saying, oh, I can't do meditation because I've got too many thoughts. It's a bit like saying, oh, I don't like going to the gym because I get sweaty. It's like, that's the point, you know, like you're going to have thoughts if you sit and do meditation. So that's not, you're failing. That's just totally normal. And if all you do is sit for a few moments and recognize that you've got so many thoughts, like that is a first step. Just thinking, oh my God, I really do have a lot of thoughts in 1 minute. Like if you sit still for 1 minute and just observe how many thoughts you have, you know, your brain is running so fast and we take that for granted. It's just there all the time. But if you can stop and recognize that, then you think, okay, and then there's a space between you and those thoughts. You don't have to stop them. You know, you don't really have to do anything except recognize that they're there, and that's not all of you. There is something else behind the thoughts.
Would you recommend someone do the meditation every morning or every night? Or?
Yeah, I think morning is really great. Although I find mornings difficult to get a lot of, you know, to get things done in, because my kids are still waking me up super early. So I do like doing the mornings, but I also really like doing it in the evening, just to sort of settle my mind down at the end of the day. So I really like ideally what's really nice is to have a moment at the beginning of the day and a moment at the end of the day before you go to sleep, so that you kind of like, you know, you're sort of wrapping your day up in something that's just you and that's calm and clear. And if you can get those, then, you know, that's really supporting yourself. Although if you can't get those and you're just doing them in the middle of the stairs or in the, you know, when you go to the loo, that's also that's really worth it as well. So you said 3, didn't you?
Yes,
Breathing.
2.
Breathing and meditation. Well, God, there's loads of things that I love to choose from. But I mean, I would say my other favorite one is, actually, I was going to say connecting to nature, but that's very similar to the other two. So the other thing that I think is really powerful is checking in at the end of the day with what went well. So counting your successes at the end of the day. And that I think is really huge for mums, actually. Like that's such a big deal, because there are so many things every day that go really well. And there are so many things that go like horribly wrong, you know, but it's so much easier to remember all the things that go horribly wrong. Or even not horribly wrong, just like sort of endless kind of obstacles, you know, just like endlessly things, you know, and you know that when you've got little ones and you're trying to get out of the house and it literally takes you an hour and a half to get everything ready to go out of the house, and then you're ready to go out and then one of them does a poo and then you've got another half an hour of you know, it's just like, it can be like impossible. And if you're, you know, when you're stuck in that situation or you're in that situation, it can be really hard to, at the end of the day, remember that you did actually manage all of that, or you know, and then you always forget something. You know, you've always gone out and you've forgotten something. But when you can remember the little tiny things that went well, even if they seem like the tiniest things, like you know, my daughter ate half an apple today. Great, you know, whatever. It can be the smallest thing. You know, she didn't just eat Cocoa Pops for breakfast, or whatever. And if you can count 3, then your brain remembers that. So your brain, we're like searching, aren't we, the next day? Like our brain is looking for what we recognize. It wants to find the same thing the next day. It wants to find it. So if you remember the good stuff, it's so clever, isn't it? You just immediately start shifting your reality because you start noticing what's good.
The more you notice, the more it feels like those things are happening in a more positive light, don't they? Even though it's the same day as it was last week. Just shifting your perception.
Yeah. And I think, and it's really, generally in our culture, especially in the UK, but there's a kind of culture of kind of focusing on the kind of chaos and the bad stuff, and especially with mums, you know, and it can be really funny as well. And there's like a big culture of like it being really funny, all the stuff that's crazy and gone wrong, which I think is great and it's really fun. But I think it has to be balanced out with quietly, also just secretly to yourself needs be, you know what I mean? You don't have to tell everyone, but just quietly saying, okay, I did do that, I did deal with that quite well, you know, or they did eat this today, or we did actually get outside, or whatever it is. It's so important to balance it.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. So those have definitely been my big main three things. And even just doing those three things, even in just small snippets, like completely in a few weeks, really can just radicalize how you feel.
Yeah. So those three things are mindset. Would you say that the mindset has a greater effect than, say, the physical nutrition, hydration?
I think they're both so important, right? I think they're both really, really important. But for me, I think that with the mindset, the reason that I focus on that, or I would say for mothers who are first thinking about this, is that it's really not relying on anything else except for you. So, yeah, it's fantastic to improve your nutrition and drink, eat more plants and vegetables and, get smoothies in for your kids and make sure you're hydrated and do exercise. Like those things are also crucial, definitely. And they make a massive difference to how you're feeling. But the reason that I would say the other things first is really just because when it comes to like food and in the kitchen or exercise as a mom, especially if you've got small children, there are lots of obstacles. There can be obstacles to that. And I think if you've got the mindset, that's really the basis there for everything anyway. So, I think there's lots of people who can improve their lives hugely with nutrition and exercise. But if they don't change their mindset, they've kind of missed a step anyway. So you need both.
And like you said, with the mindset, it's so empowering because you just need yourself. You just have to show up, don't you? And practices each day, and you're guaranteed to get good results if you put in a little bit.
Exactly. It's totally free. You're not relying on any equipment or anyone else or any, you can get an app to help you do meditation, but you don't even have to. It's just literally deciding to grab a few moments in your mind. That's really all it is. And it sounds so small when you say it like that, doesn't it? But like it's massive. It makes a massive difference, and we're not encouraged to do it. And I know it's made a massive difference to you. It definitely makes a massive difference for me. And there are so many mothers that I see, so many people are coping and struggling in different ways. But that mindset stuff is really the most grounding element for anyone. Whether there are people who, they seem to be able to juggle lots of children, but they're quite stressed in themselves, or they've got, or, everything's sorted, but they're working a really hard job. There's so many different types of mothers, but that mindset can always can help everyone.
Well, it's ironic, isn't it, that actually you said, when you actually have your aha moment of the mindset's helping your time and everything, wasn't when you were looking for that. It was when you finally, why did you finally? What made you go back down to the Detox Academy?
Well, I was always interested. So I was already like into the nutrition stuff. I was already looking at, raw food, and I wanted to just feel better and healthier, because something I've always looked towards and leaned towards anyway. And I know that whenever I go through phases of better or worse nutrition, but whenever it's good, whenever I've got a lot of good stuff in me, I just feel a lot better, not just physically, but in my mind as well. But so I went to that course because I just wanted to get back to the next level. I just wanted to really sort of solidify that, and not just be my idea of what I was doing. I really wanted to get somewhere to energize my body and stuff. But what happened was I really energized my mind as a result of that, and I wasn't fully expecting it. So, and it was also because, I wasn't really looking for the mindset, but I was finding that life was very emotional. It was so full on, very, very emotional, like all of us, like me and my 3 children, like we were all highly strung all the time. And that's just, it's not sustainable, and so that wasn't why I went to the Detox Academy, but that's what changed, is that we weren't so much, we weren't all flinging off each other emotionally all the time. It was just, I was much more able to stay calm and My children weren't necessarily, you know, as children, I was still kids.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But they definitely see how I deal with things differently, and that's like a bonus. It's really nice, you know. You know, they're into breathing, and well, they know that I am at least, you know, and they kind of muck about with it, and that just feels like, oh, that's great. You know, they've got a tool. I've got a tool. They have.
Yeah, and they're learning through imitation, and they're seeing you managing your emotions and how you manage stress, which ultimately that's where they're going.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, because it's basically how you feel is how your children will feel. Really. I mean, I strongly feel that, you know, it doesn't really matter how you're looking after your children. Like, there is so much judgment about what type of parenting you're doing, or at least I mean, yeah, there definitely has been, and it just seems to me that it's not to do with what decisions you're making about whether you're co-sleeping or not. I've got a friend of mine at the moment who's got her first baby in South Africa, and she's, you know, she's having a lovely time with her baby. He's really happy. He's in bed with her. She's breastfeeding him. She really couldn't be happier. She's amazing. She has really good nutrition as well, and mindset. But she's really happy. But she's still got all these people saying to her, "Oh, you mustn't co-sleep with your baby. He'll never sleep through the night. He'll never, you know, blah blah blah." But the thing is, it doesn't matter. Like, it doesn't matter how they've coped with their young baby. It doesn't matter how she copes with her young baby. What matters is she's okay. And so her baby feels good. If she feels good, her baby feels good. And if he feels good, then he'll be able to sleep through the night, and he'll be able to go, you know, into his own cot. And it doesn't matter what the outside structure is. It only matters how the mum is exuding her own feelings, right?
Yeah, if you're strong and you feel empowered and you've got a great mindset, you can intuitively kind of tap into what works for you and your baby, and you're not so concerned about what other people are saying anyway, because you haven't got that longing and looking to the outside for someone to say, please tell me I'm doing it right, you know.
Yeah, that's another, it's another really good point. Not only you helping your child by feeling better, so they are going to pick that up off you, but yeah, you can sort of put a boundary around all the outside information, you know, your mother-in-law or your mother, or how your sister does it, or your friend does it, you know, whatever. And everyone does it differently. But that shouldn't be a problem. You know, that shouldn't make us feel defensive about how we're doing it. You know, if my friend feels like she needs to do it that way, as long as her and her baby are happy, that's great. That shouldn't make me feel that I'm doing it wrong. Yeah. And there's this kind of feeling like there's only one way and you have to defend it. But that's not true. That's really not true. The only thing that matters is how the mother is coping, and therefore the children will be all right. Like, as long as they're basically fed and watered, you know, and taken outside every now and then, you know. So actually, I read something I thought was quite interesting, and it was to do with something else completely. It was to do with women and money, actually. But the thing that I was reading was the woman was saying, well, actually, considering women have only had, you know, the vote for having, you know, not that many years or whatever, we've actually gained quite a lot, and we've managed quite a lot, but we've still got further to go. And I think in a way that applies to motherhood. You know, so much has changed, and we kind of feel like we should understand it as women. Like, we should nail it. You know, we've got all this nice resources, and there's schools, and we can go and get jobs, but actually, I think our notion of motherhood has still got quite a lot of evolving to do. You know, society has changed so much. Yeah. But we haven't yet kind of shifted to make motherhood work for us, as well as for the kids and for society. You know, it's really an integral part of how society runs and how it works. But we haven't quite molded it in a way that works for women, because nearly every mother I know is kind of swamped, basically. And that's an issue. That's basically a big issue, for not just for the mothers and the children, but for society, honestly.
It's important. I mean, it just shows you how important it is to get this right. because the impact you're going to have on future generations, or even just as near as your children having children, you know, it's like,
yeah,
it's so important.
yeah. There was it's going to be a kind of fluffy science anecdote, but but there research done on epigenetics about in mice, okay, but about the genetic changes that happen when a mother is bonded with her child, compared to a mouse that isn't. I don't know how they did that, but anyway, I guess some mice are more maternal than others or whatever. And when the basically the epigenetic effects lasted for 3 generations. So a baby mouse that was with a mother that wasn't, I can't remember what it was exactly, the bonding situation. If their mother wasn't caring for them, basically if the mother wasn't nurturing the mouse, it would knock on for 3 generations, but it could be reversed. So that if that baby mouse was then given to another mother who was nurturing, the changes would knock on for 3 generations. And that's not to say that we're all nurturing our children, but the point being that if any changes that you can make in the way that you're feeling and the way that you're kind of connecting with your child in that way, it's not just about you in that moment. It's actually having a ripple effect. I don't know if that makes sense. But
and I like the idea that you can change, don't you? That you can change your circumstance.
Yeah, absolutely. And that it's not all about what's happening on the outside. It's not about the outside circumstances. It's not about I think especially also with bringing up kids, there's a lot of focus on, oh well, when they get to 6 weeks, or when I stop breastfeeding, or when they sleep through the night, or when they're out of nappies, or and there's just always another stage. And there's that kind of, it's like chasing something that you never reach, like, oh, that bit will be fine, that bit will be fine, and you kind of think, oh, if I can just, you're in this survival mode, if I can just get to that bit, everything will be better. But then the survival mode is you, like how, it's not about what's going on the outside, it's about how you are. So you have to shift that bit, and then it doesn't matter what stage you're in, because it's about how you're dealing with it. And this sounds quite heavy, but like what we were saying before, it's actually really, really easy to do. It's actually really easy.
It is.
Yeah.
It makes everything lighter as well. Being a parent, it can be really easy to get drawn into that sort of seriousness. They're really heavy things, aren't they? Fear and guilt and judgment. But actually, this is it. This is the moment we've got now, isn't it? And if you can really enjoy the moments, life can feel a lot lighter and happier.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the thing. And then, and then you get that feeling that you were sort of thinking you were going to get when you were pregnant the first time around, because you are enjoying, dealing with the tantrums, and you see them as like an opportunity, to like get in there with your kid, because you're not overwhelmed by it, or, and there's that kind of switch that you can make if you've got the energy, you've got a child who is refusing to brush their teeth, if you're exhausted, you're just like, annoying, it's annoying, and you get frustrated. But if you've got just a little bit more energy, just a little bit more clarity, you've got the ability, like a little space in your mind to go, okay, actually, I've got enough now to like engage and make this happen, in a positive way. And then you have fun. And like saying, and then it does become blissful and joyful, and, but you've got to recoup that energy. You've got to, you've got to maintain it and it's like, it's precious, it's important.
It's so important. And for children as well, to see that you're looking after yourself, they're respecting you, and they see it's important that mum's looked after and loved, and she's not just there to serve others.
Yeah, absolutely. And that, because otherwise you can begin to feel like you're just sort of, the doormat, aren't you? Yeah. But the more you do it for yourself, the more you're putting out that message to your child, but you're also reminding yourself. You have to keep doing it to remind yourself that you're not a doormat.
So doing mini coaching packages, is that right, at the moment?
Yeah. So I'm offering to do, just a mini coaching program. Well, it's not a program, package. So it's just 2 coaching calls with some email support in the middle. Mm-hmm. Is how I would space it out. So like an hour of chatting to work out really like what's going on, and just to be heard, you know, like whatever stage anyone's at, it's just to be able to have a chat to someone about what's actually going on and how you're really feeling. And you know, I can, by listening to that, you know, I've been there, I can sort of hear what's actually like what's going on underneath and what the feelings are about that, and to just get that recognized, and then find just a few little things that you could do, whether it's breathing or meditation, or whether it's making sure you're drinking water, or, you know, cutting down on your caffeine, or just really simple things that can make a really big difference. And then so we can set that up, and then it's hard to bring in new habits. Like, you do have to be committed, and it, you know, it does take effort. And so that's what the email support's for in the middle. So just to keep you going, to work out how you can keep it up, because you might try and do it in the morning, but you're not managing. So then you've got to find some other time. You know, it takes a bit of getting used to. And then so another call after 3 weeks of that to just check in again and see if it's worked, if it's making you feel any better. Just to try it out. And I think the other thing is, you know, I saw that you mentioned this as well, but, you know, like, coaching is quite new. Isn't it? And I think a lot of people are like, oh, what is that? Yeah. You know, it's a little bit unknown.
Yeah.
And you might think, oh, well, you know, coaches, the first thing you think is like kind of sports people, right? You know, they have coaches. And then there's like business coaches. Hi. So it's like considered something that's for athletes or businessmen or businesswomen, you know.
Yeah.
But actually, I think it's just as important for mums, isn't it? You know, like motherhood.
Probably more so, actually.
Exactly. Our job's so important. Hi, Poppy.
I think we did really well, actually, to talk for so long without any.
Yes. Yeah.
That's so great, Amanda. Thank you.
Oh, no, thanks, Anna.
No, and then what's the best way for people to contact you if they'd like to do some coaching with you?
Hi. Just meeting your kids. So the best way to contact me is to look at my Facebook page, Mothers Rock, on Facebook, Mothers Rock, and you can just PM me through there. It's probably the best way on Facebook. Yeah.
Fantastic.
Thanks, Anna.
Thanks, Amanda.